Yeah, so thank you very much for the invitation to come. It's a great pleasure to be here. Us from the north, we are always eager to leave the cold climate and come to the south. So it's lovely to be here. I'm going to talk a bit about making urban life healthy and what could some of the ideas be. There's a little bit of background first, looking at who we are, and some might know Gil and some might not know Gil. So we are an urban design practice based in Copenhagen, but it really all started with Jan Gil, educated as an architect in the 1960s, and then marrying a psychologist who asked, why are you architects not interested in people? And that started a whole new research field for Jan in terms of figuring out how do we investigate or be more knowledgeable about the relationship between life and form, about quality of life, about how we enjoy cities, how we create communities that work and communities that absolutely don't work. What can we learn and how can we evaluate our processes and do better? So a lot of Jan's work has been going into writing books and having them translated. This Cities for People has been translated into 40 different languages, which is keeping Jan busy as an 82-year-old to travel around and talk about the gospel. And what I think is really interesting is that it's just constantly picking up in terms of the interest of the messaging around Cities for People, around being more inclusive, about focusing at what are the outcomes of the built environment. And of course, that is all supported also by the UN Sustainable Development Goals that are putting extra pressure on us, or really communicating some of the challenges we've got in the world, and how we find that a number of these issues actually correlate very much. So when we talk about our typical field about sustainable cities and communities, that feeds back to health, it feeds back to equity, it feeds back to climate action. So we can connect the dots quite a lot in the work that we're doing. The one I'm focusing on here is health, and on some of the depressing facts in the world that physical inactivity, so what all of you are basically doing now, is not good for us. So the sitting syndrome of sitting down too much is costing us 23 million annual deaths in Europe alone. And that's, to me, 4 times the population of my country that walks out the door just because we don't do enough. This is too hard to do and not inspiring. I've had a little trip around, or walking trip around Sydney, also collecting. You've got interesting fitness, what was the other? Snap fitness. There are all these interesting names for it, and it's just still not very attractive. So we've got the challenges around obesity and activity. We also got the challenges around growth in the cities. So a lot of increased number of people coming to the cities, people working here, but also quite a lot of speculation in what is being built. So we've got the European example of Frankfurt, which is in a great need of more housing and also affordable housing. But what is being built is empty, commercial structures, which is acting like a bank for refugees from Brexit and from Trump. So placing their money in Frankfurt in a secure office tower, doesn't matter if it's full or not. So that whole contradiction about what are we actually using our built environment for, and when we talk about future city, what do we imagine? So if you Google search future city, this is what comes up. Whether that is healthy, maybe there are other ways, or other more on the ground, human scale, closer to reality visions about what we should be thinking about. We did some work for the WHO, collecting different examples from across Europe around looking at what are the good examples of integrating physical activity in cities, how is it done, and looking at how some of the, again, the challenge in Europe, around 30% of car journeys less than 3 kilometers, easily walked. 50% of car journeys are less than 5 kilometers, something you can bicycle in less than 20 minutes. So we've got a lot of challenges around that. We use the car too much for short distance trips, and how can we transfer that into something that's better for the environment? I don't know if you looked out your windows this morning, but it's an amazing dusty view in the distance of the air quality just being poorer and poorer. It's also about how can we increase our health, how can we have better options for moving in the city that just invites us to walk in a pleasant environment that's inviting and good for it. So Copenhagen has a pedestrian strategy policy that's looking at how we get more people to walk more, and of course acknowledging there are a number of benefits of that. Sydney is is also a strong walking city where you got 90% of all your trips done in the CBD is done by foot. There's a number of measures that are really positive around that, mentioned here. But also, there's of course also the need for comfort in doing that, and on how the environment around it, how the public realm is attractive for walking, underpinning it, which is also part of supporting public transport, because as we know, we have to get to the station, we have to get to the bus, and that just needs to be an inviting journey for inviting people to do it, but it also needs to be attractive to invite the elderly and the kids to use it as well. So part of the policies in Copenhagen has been to take footpaths across minor side streets, so really strongly indicating pedestrian priority, also bicyclist priority, so that the few vehicles that do come out from the side streets have to give way, yield. That's a whole new principle in Australia. So how can you, in a strong way, say we really prioritize these transport modes, and that enables kids to walk to school on an unbroken pavement for the majority of the way? Yeah, so a lot of data has been collected about Copenhagen. This is the Viking invasion, I'm guessing, when you hear about Stockholm in the morning and Copenhagen just before lunch. So a lot has been done in Copenhagen around walking, but also collecting the data and information about what has changed in the city. So going from thinking that maybe it's better to actually specifically knowing what the facts are, what the numbers are. When we're doing this, this happens. When we're doing that, this happens. So that whole measurement and monitoring what's going on is really an embedded part of how the city is run. So we know also that the recreation has gone up. It's not just about walking, it's also about spending time and enjoying the comfort of the city. And we know that people stay longer and longer. And that it's these diverse age groups that we also see in the city. We've had visitors asking whether we've got baby booms. Nah, not really. Our population is slowly dying out. But we have an environment that's attractive, that feels okay to bring your kids along, and also for you to enjoy city life and look at what's going on. So this is one of our canals. Before, used to be a parking lot. Now it's a parking lot for people all along the edge, and even you got the boats in. So of course this is a strong signal that if you manage to change the balance, you also increase the available space in the city. Part of the story, of course, is also around the bicycle and of having the bikes. It hasn't always been a glorious story in Copenhagen. So in the 70s, we did have a decline. And also it was believed that it was better to discourage bicycling because it was too dangerous. There were too many accidents. So better take space away from them to make people do something else. That turned around the oil crisis and the whole environmental talk in the 70s. We had car-free Sundays. And a lot of other discussions that started to change the discourse of how the city was planned. So today we've got a very strong usage of the bicycle, and it is, when you look at it, it is the major mode of transport in the city. It's nothing fancy. I think an Australian would never ride a Danish bike. You can look at this photo. Pretty crappy, heavy bikes. Also, we ride in our suits in a slow way. So, so it's just, there's no fuss. It's just what you do. Very relaxed. Getting from A to B, very easy to go to a meeting. It just takes you 5 minutes to get from here to Circular Quay. So very relaxed. If you ask Copenhageners why they do it, you could say it's depressing that only 1% say it's because of the environment. But it comes down to us being a little bit lazy creatures and of feeling that it's quick, convenient, easy, comfortable to do. And of course the exercise counts as well, because that means we don't have to go to that awful gym. We can do this one instead. Some of the ingredients of the bicycle network is to have that continuous barrier-free environment, that it's connected with major destinations, that missing links are fixed, direct routes, also connected to where you want to go to regional networks. So yeah, so that's Nirvana for Sydney. I know Sydney is working really hard to roll out the bicycle structure here, which makes a lot of sense. Busiest location, 40,000 bicyclists per day, so a really massive shift in the city. Also a lot of kilometers cycled, that is increasing, and the accidents are decreasing, although more people are out there. And typically we get the story of saying, well, in Australia we can't really do that because it's too hot here. Or it's too hilly. There one hill along the way, and we tend to say, well, people can overcome a lot, and maybe there can be days where 30% of them choose not to do it because it's too hot or too cold, but the rest really pedal along. And it's not because there are no alternatives, or they can't afford a car, or public transport isn't working. There's multiple opportunities, but this is felt again as the convenient, easy way.